Okay, so quick review of proportions. Proportion box is in front of you. It has labels, and in your question they set up ratios because a proportion is just looking at two ratios and determining if they're equivalent. The first question is a missing part question, meaning that we're missing one number on the second ratio. And so we build a proportion box. Our labels are part and total. The first ratio is 4 parts to 30 total. The second ratio is we don't know how many parts, but we know there's a total of 120. Our question says that we have 4 girls in a class and 4 girls in an advisory class of 30 have brown hair. So the part is the brown hair. Got that all off. Brown hair out of the total. If there are 120 girls in the entire school, so there's another total, how could you predict how many are brown haired? Well, we're looking right here at how many have brown hair in the entire school. So what we do is set up our proportion box. We know we're missing this number here. So we want to find a scale factor to help us find and fill in that number. My arrow is going to go towards the missing number, but I'm going to use the bottom two to find my scale factor because I have to look at 30. How do I get to 120? Well, I'm jumping, and that jump is my scale factor. Scale factor is only multiplication. So 30 times what gives me 120? Well, I know 30 times 4 is 120. My scale factor on the top has to be the same. That's how we know it's equivalent. So 4 times 4 is 16. So B equals 16, meaning that 16 girls would have brown hair out of a total of 120. Okay, so you try number 2. Pause the video and then come back and check with me. Okay, so you should have paused the video and found this answer on your own, set up just like the original one. We have a 20-foot tall tree and 12 feet wide. A smaller tree is only 3 feet wide, and it's proportional in size to the taller tree, just meaning it's an equivalent. So we're looking for what is the height. Well, again, I'm looking at how do I jump from 12 to 3? Well, I can divide by 4. The problem is that scale factor is multiplying. So I can think, okay, 12 divided by 4, but scale factor would be times a fourth because we know multiplying by a fourth and dividing by 4 is the exact same thing. So 12 times 1/4, or really divided by 4, is 3. So on the top, 20 times, not a half, a fourth, or divided by 4 is 5. So H would be 5, and your answer is C. If you look at number 3, you're going to build on a table because your answer choices are asking which one could match. So you have forks and spoons, 2 to 1. A says that you should also, or could also have 2 forks, 2 spoons. B says I could have 2 forks and 4 spoons. C, I could have 8 forks, 4 spoons. Well, I need to prove or disprove each of these answer choices. So I'm going to start at my base, which is my base ratio here. Here's my base. And I'm going to find using a scale factor if these are true. Well, I know 1 times 2 gives me 2. For A to be true, it means 2 times 2 also has to be 2. Well, that we know is not true, which tells me that A is incorrect. Go back to your base ratio and jump to 4. Well, 1 times 4 gives me 4. So in order for B to be true with the fourths, 2 times 4 has to be 2. Well, we know that's not true, which means B is not true. The last one, go back to your base, that is 1 times 4 is 4. which means for C to be true, 2 times 4 has to be 8. And we know that it is, so that means C is our answer. So the only difference here is we didn't have a missing number. They gave us the ratios, but they just wanted to know which one is truly an equivalent ratio. Okay, so if you would complete number 4 on your own, it's very similar to the one we just did. So if you'll pause the video, try it on your own, and then come back and check with me. Okay, so you should have done this one on your own. It started with 5 ounces of water to 3 ounces of the drink mix. A says that at that ratio, if I use 12 ounces of water, I would use 20 ounces of mix. B says that at the base ratio, I could use 13 ounces of water and 15 ounces of mix. And C says at that base ratio, I could use 20 ounces of water and 12 ounces of mix. You just need to prove or disprove. So I'll start at my base, and I look from 5 to 12, and there is no scale factor. So the first thing I look at is the 5 to 3 a base? Can I get it any smaller? No, it's already at a base ratio. So this one can't be true because it does not increase at a particular rate. So then let's look at B. I can see easily 3 to 15 is times 5, but when I do the top times 5, 5 times 5 is not 13, so B is out. A, B. Last one is 3 to 12 is times 4. For this to be true, 5 times 4 has to equal 20, and it does. That means C is my answer. Then we look at some that are already set up for us. Like if you look at number 7, they give us the information, but they are asking which setup is correct. I still want to make sure I'm writing my own and then comparing. So I bring out the information that's important first. It says for every 7 markers, they sell 2 pens. Last month, the tube sold a total of 126 pens. How could they find the number of pencils? That's got to be a typo because we didn't talk about pencils. This must be markers. So what they're looking for is how many markers. Well, if I set this up as a ratio, I'm going to start with my first, here's my first ratio here, 7 markers and 2 pens. I'm going to compare that to my second ratio of, I don't know how many markers, but I know 126 pens. Labeling is important. I need to make sure that pens are next to pens and markers next to markers. So the first thing I can do is go back in my question and label. 7 should be markers, 126 pens, 2 pens, and then markers. I don't have marker to marker or marker to marker, so these would not work. Here we have 2 pens, so 126 pens, markers to markers. Okay, so the labels seem to work. 126 pens, 2 pens, markers to markers. So now it looks like B and C. But what we have to look further into is, are the ratios set up correctly? So one way that we look at that is, because I set up my own proportion box right here, I can look at diagonal what should be across from what, because as they start to move these numbers around, it wouldn't matter where they put them if it's correct. 2 pens should always be across from the unknown markers. 7 markers should always be across from the 126 pens, no matter how they set up their proportion, because there is different ways. So let's go back to A, even though we don't agree with the labels as much. Let's just verify. We said that 2 should be across from our missing number. Well, it's not. 2 is across from 126. That's not set up correctly. Go to B. Our labels look good, but we need to verify. 2 should be set up across from missing number, and it's not. The problem with 2 was their ratio of markers to pens said for every 7 markers, they had 126 pens, and that's not true. So the way they set it up was incorrect. C, 2 should be across from missing number. and it is. 7 should be across from 126, and it is. So remember when we started the proportions, we looked at how you have to set them up. We had suns and moons. Well, for example, on this one, I could have, instead of marker, marker on top, I could have pen, pen, marker, marker. I could also do pen, pen, marker, marker. I could also do marker, marker, pen, pen. I could set it up 4 different ways, which means they can set it up 4 different ways. But rather than you doing all that extra work, if you just start with, here's my ratio, now match it to one of the answer choices. Okay, so let's do number 8. If you read 12 books in 14 months, how could you find the number of books in 2 months? So set it up as 12 books, 14 months. How many books? 2 months. So now I'm just going to look across. 14 is across from missing number, no matter how it's arranged. 12 is across from 2, no matter how it's arranged. So we have 14 across from missing number. Yes. 12 across from 2. No, we don't even have a 12. B is 14 across from missing number. No. C, 14 across from missing number. Yes. 12 across from 2. Yes. The answer is C. Okay, try number. There we go. Try number 9 on your own. Pause the video, try it, come back and check with me. Okay, so this one we have a total of 6 hours. He caught 7 fish in the first 2 hours. Which proportion could be used to find the total number of fish in 6 hours? So we caught 7 fish. First 2 hours. How many fish in 6 hours? Okay, so let's set it up. 7 fish, 2 hours. How many fish in 6 hours? So look across. The 2 should be across from missing number. 6 across from 7. So 2 across from missing number? No. 2 across from missing number? Yes. 7 across from the 6? Yes. C, 2 across from missing number? Yes. 7 across from 6? No, we don't even have a 6 there, so your answer is B.